Hello everybody, I'm Antony Gormley. It's a great pleasure to be addressing you in this way. Thank you, John, for inviting me. I wanted to talk about sculpture because that's what I do. So I took this photo from my hotel room in Seoul not long ago. In May, in fact, last year. And this is the environment that our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, has created for itself. It is possibly the best, most sustainable habitat that we can make for the furtherance of our lives. But I want us to think about and deal with this fact, what this means. We know very well that by the middle of this century, 80% of our species will be living in the urban grid, in high-rise, high-density megalopoly like this. What do we see here? We see the dominance of orthogonality and certain materials, steel, concrete, glass. But what else can we see? We see an atmosphere, we see air carrying moisture, and in the distance we see mountains. We see the earth that as a species we have inherited. On the one level, this made world is where most of us, most of the time, live. But where do we really belong? In a made or a found world? In the structures that we have built or in the elements that we depend on? In the most fundamental ways, we live here in the elemental world, and I want to think about us as embodied beings that are founded in situated in the elements. And while we are protected from them in our cities, the elements are what perfectly mirror and shape our imaginations, always within the perceptual boundary of a horizon. So perhaps more truthfully, this slide shows where we really live. Is it possible for the sculpture of our time, liberated from the duties of representation or illustration, and the stories of foundation narratives, religious or political, to become a reflexive instrument, not only in the distant southwest of New Mexico, but in the space of our lives, in our cities, in the context of our made habitat? I referred to the Mexico thing because that is where one of the most beautiful works that inspired me, Walter de Maria's Lightning Field of 1979, is placed. Sculpture can be an instrument for the examination of our situation, our condition, a material investigation and reconstitution. Less a plaything or support for the powerful, more an examination, materialized skepsis. This is a work called Another Place that I made a long time ago in 1997, and I showed it in Germany, and it's now permanently installed in Crosby, just north of Liverpool. We're looking here over the Mersey River to Birkenhead, and this is looking in the opposite direction, north. You'll see that in both images, the texture of our interconnected life is here. Here is a port with all its conning towers and tunnel towers, and in the distance, a massive sewage pipe. All of this punctured by 100 cast iron standing stones in human form. They face 8 degrees north of due west, out towards the sea, towards America, towards Wales, as you can see in the distance of this photograph. They are materializations of human space in space. But I also think of them as voids. So, what is it as we look for that state that we, in a way, admire and are attracted to in an art that is liberated from the need to serve dominant narratives or ideologies or power in all its forms? It's about looking not to reorganize what we see, but to be held in a form of suspension in an undefinable space where the act of looking is of a very different kind. It is difficult to think of a two-dimensional work that does this better than Monet's Lilies. Why? Because we have here a surface that is both the surface of the painting and also a surface that reflects the sky and the trees, as well as one that evokes the depths beneath the water. So what happens to our mental state, so determined by work and a value system based on cause and effect, when we see and look at and are entranced by Monet's painting? We are released into a sense of wonder, of being, of reverie, of dreaming with our eyes open. It is only in reverie that we can re-articulate our values, our sense of what's good, what is true, and what is possible. This is a Hitokage no Ishi, or human shadow etched in stone, made on the 6th of August at 8:15, a trace that was created by the nuclear explosion over Hiroshima in 1945, leaving the indelible shadow of an old lady with her stick who was vaporized in the blast. The memory of that moment, of her lived time, is forever embedded in the materiality of the streets and steps of Hiroshima's built environment. Here, back in Crosby, outside Liverpool, is another trace, one of a body that makes up another place, all looking out to the horizon. It has been colonized by barnacles. This is the materialization of the darkness of the body that I see as a place of potential, not emptiness. It has nothing to do with me. I use my body because it's the closest bit of the material world to me, and the only bit of it that I inhabit. But I offer it as a place of reflexivity. So what is another place? It's a way of offering, in the common space of a beach, physical instruments that allow us to reconsider through first-hand experience our place in the world. The sculpture becomes a place where biological human time and cosmic time converge. Here is another work called Passage, a humanly shaped void, but now made 20 meters long, a dead-end street in human form that we are invited to enter and walk into darkness. You can just see the left-hand foot of somebody disappearing into this hole. Some people never make it to the end. This is a journey in which things that sculpture lacks, thought and feeling, but mainly movement, are provided by us, the viewers. And the sculpture simply becomes a context. Here is an object that is also a place, and now literally a place that you can enter. In exploring the sculpture, you are also exploring yourself. And as you walk towards the darkness at the other end of the tunnel, you are walking towards the projected shadow of your own body. Whether you make it to the end or not, you eventually turn and return to the light, the image on the right. And in returning to the light, you also return to the world, to friendship, to possibility. All of this is contained by an object, but produces an experience. It's an attempt to materialize a temporal condition as well as the bounding condition of the skin. It's animated by an acoustic. So this corten steel sits on spaces which separate it from the floor and allow it to amplify every single footfall as you walk, that come out like a slowed heartbeat. Boom, 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 as you walk towards the darkness at the end of the tunnel. It's an example of a work that accepts the artificial conditions of a white cube, of a gallery, to make a space that becomes an instrument of proprioception, or awareness of our own experience, and self-observation. So there are ways that architecture itself can become reflexive. These are photographs of Museum Sun outside Seoul in Korea. Tadao Ando is an architect whose work I have admired for ages, for most of my life. Why? Because he brings and pulls back architecture from its Corbusian rubric of being a machine for living and recognizes its ability to be a context in which being itself can be concentrated. Here we have deconstructed architecture where ceilings don't hit walls and where there are no pillars to hold or support. There's a slot that runs all around these corridors that seems to go on forever. These massive curtain-like walls of concrete are actually hovering in space. Why? For what? So that as we make this journey down into the earth and make a new connection with the sky, on stones that are literally dumped at the bottom of this chasm. This is me standing on the stones looking north. I mean, looking up. There is something really existential about this. And again, it connects to those first examples of art that is a place as much as an object. One that invites us to reconsider where we fit in the scheme of things. We don't know how long our species will be involved in the evolution of the biosphere. We do know that many of the structures that we have invented are toxic to the very things that support life. For a long time, sculpture propped up the status quo and the systems that for centuries depleted our planet. But it has the critical power to do the reverse, to question assumptions, to offer new thoughts and feelings, and maybe help us realize that we are all, each and every one of us, making the future. That agency is real, and the world is ours to make. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this important conference, and here's wishing you all the very best in the future.